Hi guys, today we are going to take a stroll through the garden. We're going to look at how things are going, and as you can see back here, we're going pretty well, garden-wise, veggie-wise. But there are a lot of bad parts and a lot of ugly parts. It is May 9th. We have had an incredible amount of rain this past month, almost 10 inches, and in this past week, almost 5 inches alone. Now, our average monthly rainfall is between 4 and 5 inches. So we are beyond waterlogged at this point. I'm actually standing in a puddle of water. So I will share with you the good parts, the bad parts, and the ugly parts, which are a lot of the areas that I have not had a chance to set up yet, just because of the rain and because I'm trying to do way too much this year. I'd like to welcome you to my backyard Kentucky homestead. If you're new here, my name is Kim. And if you like gardening and veggies, go ahead and hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. So let's get started. As I said, we have had a tremendous amount of rain. So in my yard, it kind of dips in the center. I have water just standing, just puddling everywhere. It is also making it difficult to keep up with the weeds. There's been absolutely no reason to work on the drip irrigation. Not actually been able to do that, but everything is beyond irrigated at this point. But with the raised beds, that has saved the crops. We'll look at those here in just a moment. But I'm literally walking through mud puddles. My feet are absolutely soaked. So the other part of the bad is just the grass itself. Came out with a weed eater 2 nights ago to knock down as much as I could of it, just so that by chance some of the wind could evaporate some of the water. And I think it had started to do that, but over yesterday and last night, when the really, really bad storms came through Missouri, Kentucky, Michigan, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, we got probably almost an inch of rain last night. So it is just back up to where it had been. So keeping up the grass, keeping up the weeds is a really big problem when it comes to the rain. As far as the garden goes, let's go ahead and look at the cabbages first. So this is the first bed of cabbage I planted out in March 16th or thereabouts. We have red acre cabbage in the front and green acre cabbage in the back. We have kohlrabi. If we get down low, we've got some that is just about ready to be picked. Another one over here. So these are under that tulle fabric. It's very thin fabric. It is keeping the pests off for the most part, but they are getting under there a little bit. And that kohlrabi is kind of sticking out, so it's getting a little bit of an attack on it. The cabbages are doing really well. I expect them to be ready within the next couple of weeks. They're heading up very nicely. So over here we have Danvers carrots, coral bell, and tender sweet. We have several types of spinach. Spinach, I've not had huge luck with, so this is the best probably I've ever had. It's doing pretty good. And then we have 4 or 5 different types of lettuce. So this is red sales leaf lettuce, little gem butterhead lettuce, bronze mignonette lettuce, which hasn't done very well yet, and then black seeded Simpson lettuce. And then finally we have a variety of radishes. In grow bags around the garden, I have some dahlias. These I started from seed. Then we have some zinnias and more dahlias from seed. And we have some nasturtium. And here we have some of the ugly. Trying to get this all sorted out here. So this bed I'm going to be replacing with one of the taller beds, the 17-inch beds. And this 8-inch bed here is going to go over to the other side of the yard, which still needs to be set up. Well, this is pretty cool. This is red freckles romaine lettuce that I planted last year. Early in the spring, it bolted and let it go to seed. It self-seeded itself. And then it survived over the winter. This came back all by itself. And I've used quite a bit of it. I've had the whole half of the bed was full. So it has just done absolutely beautifully well. I couldn't believe we had temperatures down to near zero as well, but this survived and it just has come back strong, really beautiful. Here we have a bait alpha cucumber. It is a burpless cucumber and started it indoors with the intent of trying to have cucumbers inside. It did actually make one, but it's done much better since I've moved it outside. Here we have our miniature nectarine tree. And let's see, and it does actually have some nectarines on it. So excited about that. This is its first year in the ground here. I got it last year and it was in a grow bag. Over here we have a dwarf Cresthaven peach tree. And we also have peaches on that as well. Couple. One. There's one down there. So there are a couple of peaches on this tree as well. In this bed we have carrots that overwintered and are growing. And then we also have a bunch of different green beans. We've got Aroma 2 green beans. There are some contender beans and a French style thin bean. So Maxibel haircut. Over here we have ranunculus that we planted a few months ago. It's doing well. And then over here we have all of the first bed of tomatoes that we put in my last video. If you haven't checked that out, you can see how to put them in for their best growth. And they're doing really, really well. They've grown quite a bit just since I put them in about a week ago. And then in the center we have basil. Basil is a really good companion plant because it tends to distract the bugs, and especially the tomato hormone. They have a harder time finding the tomatoes. Over here we have our peppers, and I did put some stakes in. I've got to get another set of them to trellis those up, but they're doing well. Over here we have a bunch of blueberries that are in grow bags, and they are absolutely loaded with blueberries. And I also have blueberries over on this side, and these are just loaded as well. And this one is, so I'm gonna have to cover them with some tulle fabric here soon, or the birds are gonna eat them all up. Just absolutely loaded. I got some Nick Senior Dahlia. Now I've got 4 columnar apple trees here. And a columnar apple tree, it'll get really tall. It needs about 2 to 3 feet of space. And the apples will form actually right on the trunk or very, very close to it. So it's a really good one if you've got a small urban area or even a pot. They work really, really well in pots. And then I added in some extra cabbages because I had some left over. So those are mammoth red cabbage in the back. Got some more dahlias and a lot more weeds and grass. Here we have our blackberries. This is their first full year. 3 plants, some cabbages in between, and some weeds because you gotta have weeds. Try to get out here this weekend and get this cleaned up. And we've actually got a couple of blossoms. Got another dahlia. Here we have some cherry bushes and a few more weeds. This is a Juliet cherry bush from Gurney's, and a Romeo cherry bush from Gurney's. We have a Wisconsin pickling cucumber, and then we have our raspberry bed. Well, this is a bed that I set up in the fall of last year. They did grow in a grow bag most all of last year, and we already have some fruit developing. We have some pretty iris. Everything's taken a beating because of the rain. So that is the bags of blueberries that we were looking at a moment ago. So in this bed we have some jade green beans and also the onions. Now this is the bed where I first planted the onions, but if you look at the onion video I did about fertilizing them, I lost quite a few of my Walla Walla over in this section. I think I smothered them out, so there are things I'm going to do differently for next year. We're sorry about the wind. There are things I'm going to do next year differently, so if you're interested in that, check out that video. I'll link it below. But these onions are really doing well. They're getting nice and big. We've got some more dahlias and some nasturtium. These are potatoes, part of the potatoes in this bed, and also in this bed here. Also in this bed here. These are potatoes that I actually planted in January, December or January. And they've mostly come back up. They're actually flowering already. So they're doing beautifully. I'll be able to harvest these within the next couple of weeks. This is another portion of the onions that I planted out earlier in March. They're doing beautiful. And a couple of cauliflower that I tucked in. And I have noticed with all of the rain that we're getting is that we have quite a lot of slugs. So I'm going to put some slug bait out here in a lot of the beds shortly. We also have a whole lot of mushrooms everywhere. So this is the other tomato bed that we planted. Also doing beautifully well. And I have a couple of tomatillos here. Never grown those before. I had a problem with my seeds that some of the stuff didn't germinate well. Other stuff, when I transplanted it, the dirt wasn't good. So I lost a lot of stuff and had to start it over. But I'm going to try to grow these tomatillos this year. You do need 2 tomatillos whenever you're growing them for them to pollinate properly. There is our pepper bed. And down here we have dahlias and a variety of other flowers. We have some herbs. These are various kinds of basil in pots. And back here we have our sweet gem and sweet peas. And we have actually been able to pick some of those. And this plant over here on the left side was much faster development. This one is just starting to flower. No, sorry, we have eggplant in these 3 beds, which I planted at the same time I planted the tomatoes. Looks like something's eating them up though, so I'm going to need to spray those with some dead bug. And here we have 3 rows of 3 grow bags. The first 2 rows over here are our white and red or the Yukon Gold and red Norland potatoes. I planted those in the middle of March. And then these 3 bags here, I planted on April 20th. I'm going to do a video here soon. I'm wanting to plant potatoes each month, just a few, to try to have a harvest for a longer period of time. I don't have a good cold storage option, so I'm going to try to do smaller harvest of potatoes more frequently. So we'll see if that works once it gets really, really hot and humid. So then we have some more dahlias and a lot of water. Over there we have the dahlias and the zinnias. So we'll start over to this bed here. So our cabbage that we looked at earlier is over there. Then over here we have a variety of other brassicas. We have purple broccoli, we have Romanesco broccoli, there's some pak choi, and some more kohlrabi. So it's just a variety of whatever I could throw in there. And it is all, for the most part, doing really well. I did have a problem with my spring rapini, the grow room that I had them in. Forgot to open the door on that, and it got super hot. So every one of those has bolted. Actually, There's the result of the bolting. Gotta pick that up. Okay. Over here we have 2 beds of hard garlic and 1 bed of soft garlic. So this is one of the garlic, and we are, I think, getting pretty close to a couple more weeks. Some of these are pretty good size. Some of these are really good size, especially on the other side. We're getting some really big heads of garlic down there, which is exciting because I got like nothing last year. So very excited for that. We got some more nasturtium. Over here is our second bed. This is our hot pepper bed, along with some onions I transplanted. They were over by the tall garlic, and it was just, they weren't getting enough sunlight. So these have settled in and are really going to town. So hot peppers are doing very well. Got a few more peppers tucked in here. But these are also our January potatoes, and they are starting to bloom as well. So we will have potatoes. It's even further blooming. That's gorgeous. So cool. So I'm going to do this again. I planted these in January with no expectation. Other than they might survive, because if you have a volunteer potato come up that you miss in the ground, why can you not plant ones that are going to seed anyway? They were all growing really long hives. They were not edible anymore. They were not usable. So why not throw them out here instead of throwing them in the compost or the trash? This transformed into more potatoes, more food. So very excited about that. This is another bed. I've got onions on this side, and then I've got garlic on the back, the front side, but on the other side is garlic. So with the garlic, I did have some areas where it didn't come back. This back area, this bed would be part of that. So I'm not sure if it was the type or if it was the weather, but most of it, we've got a ton of it growing. Over here, we have elephant garlic just on this edge of the bed, so it's going well. Some more nigella, roses, dahlias, nasturtium, some more okra I need to plant, and some water. Now this bed was really behind the other one, but it has really picked up over the last few days. I did some extra nitrogen fertilizer on it, some liquid, and it is doing a whole lot better. As you can see, overall, the garden itself so far is doing very, very well. If not for the garden beds, if I didn't have those, I'd be kind of sunk right now, literally underwater. So now let me show you some of the ugly, but not quite as ugly as some other stuff. Okay, so these are the flower beds that I put in last fall. Now I had gone to Lowe's quite a lot, bought a lot of perennials from there, and also at Meijer for half price or less. And I planted them in the end of October, early November. Most of them have come up, and they're doing very, very well. It's a little lime hydrangea, some lavender, quick fire hydrangea. There's a bunch of Shasta daisies that I started from seed. They're also throughout this bed. There's a lot of Veronica, salvia, and daisies and things like that. A lot of phlox as well. Okay, but as you can see, it's a blue muffin viburnum. But as you can see, the big plants are doing really well, but they're just completely inundated by weeds. This is a dogwood. It's doing very well. Snapdragons that I have self-seeded. Got some alliums. This is a 9-bark, which has gotten beat down by the rain. Got some echinacea that I started from seed. That is a wine and roses Weigella. Having some issues with the roses. Also, my apple trees are having fungus issues. I did spray them with copper fungicide, the in-season formula, 2 days ago when we had about 12 hours without rain. So I'm hoping that will help them. Got some large iris. Another blue muffin viburnum. And just a crap ton of weeds. There is a delphinium back there, which is gorgeous. Some more allium. And we have clematis, which has gone up the trellis and back down. This is catmint nempeda that I started from seed. We have a barberry, some beautiful snapdragons, also self-seeded from last year, catmint. And some salvia, some veronica, a lot of weeds. There is a bush in there somewhere. I'm gonna have to trim some of that back. Thinking that might be the dwarf crimson, or dwarf, I think this is the dwarf Korean lilac. I gotta clean that up. We do actually have some denim and lace Russian sage that came back. Some delphinium, another butterfly bush. So just a whole lot of stuff here. Some phlox. So sand cherry, polka weigella, magic carpet spirea. It's a climbing hydrangea, which I didn't even know this existed until last summer. That is a common lilac. It was beautiful earlier this month. This is also another spirea. And then a white azalea. So we also have 4 dwarf apple trees. We have a Zestar, a Granny Smith, and then a red Fuji. Now the Granny Smith and the red Fuji had to be replaced this year because the old ones got canker. And this one is really, really top heavy, so I've had to jerry-rig a way for it to stand up and not fall over. I came home 3 times and had fallen over. Okay. And this one is our red Jonathan, which has this yellow dot fungus which turns into brown. So I'm hoping I caught it early enough. With all of the rain we've had, it's been really, really difficult to keep up with it. We have a new flower bed that went in November as well. We have a macrophylla hydrangea there, as well as 2 more behind it. They're in there. I have my first ever peony, which I need to deadhead. Beautiful, beautiful bloom. So I do have a stake on it that it grew through, which has worked really, really well. But we've just had so much rain. These poor flowers are just wimpy, just flopping over. But they're absolutely beautiful. We got some autumn ferns. We've got some astilbe, pincushion flower, oak leaf hydrangea, which is just gorgeous. And then we have some heucheras that are getting ready to bud out. And there's some back there. And again, there's a whole lot of weeds. This one probably isn't as bad as some of the other ones, but it's pretty bad. Up here, waiting to have a home, which is getting into some of the ugly. We have a couple of peach trees. At last rose, which needs to be deadheaded. are strawberries, which are lackluster. A lot of them haven't made it for some reason. Put some more strawberries, another rose. And then we got some patio peach trees, which have peaches on it. And then a whole bunch of other stuff that's going to be going into the yard soon. Just have to get stuff cleaned up. And then I got some extra flowers and vegetables I started from seed, which need to either find a home or plant them somewhere. This flower bed. We have peppers here. We have peppers here that need to find a home. We have some coreopsis, some salvia in here, some lilies that are coming up, echinacea, there's a weigela, all kinds of stuff in here, but also crap ton of weeds. This is a Winecraft's gold smoke bush, which is really, really pretty. And there's a lot of phlox, which was in this section right here, which has finished for the season. So let's go to the ugly part next. Surprise! Pretty bad. So I used to have a pool years ago, but we're going to be getting rid of this here. We do have a few more nectarine trees here that are hanging out until they have a permanent home. And then just some of the debris that I'm working on. We've got some daylilies over there in front of the shed. A lot of it, just a lot of debris that I got to get through. A lot of it is dependent upon getting this area set up. This is where I'm trying the roost out method out with the potatoes. But again, we have more water, very, very wet. And I have Connecticut field pumpkin, which I'm wanting to grow over the side and then out of the bed. In the center of that, we have leeks. So we have about 10 little peanut plants that have sprouted, hoping that those will continue to sprout and fill in the space. So this is a novelty. I've never grown peanuts before, so it's just a novelty to see if it'll happen. So over on this side, I've got 4 beds. I have cantaloupe, winter squash, watermelon, and then winter squash. I'm going to do something very similar on this side to clear it up. I'm going to have beds along the fence, and I'm also going to have another bed adjacent to this one, out this way, to just maximize, to have more space for winter squash and melons and other things like that. So this is the really ugly part. I'm using the cardboard underneath the beds to help block the weeds, and I'm getting rid of these cushions. So just using them to try to suppress some of the weeds that were growing up in that area. Because we have weeds everywhere. So over here we have celery in the back of each bed. And then that's a watermelon. That is a winter squash. That's a winter squash. I'll put up on the screen what they are. I didn't label them. I've got a picture of it. This is also a watermelon with more celery behind, figuring that my idea is that the melons and squash will grow out this way, so we won't be walking in this area here. I'm going to get those weeds out and then cover it all with landscape fabric. So that is winter squash. That is as well. And then we have cantaloupe in that bed. And just a really big mess to clean up. And sumac sucks. I'm going to cut that back again, and I've got some root stump out that I'm going to drill down holes into those trunks and try to get that out. finally. So the garden is doing extremely well, but if it were not for the raised beds, it would have been completely decimated. There's just too much water. So it's another reason. If you're interested in setting up great raised beds, I did post a video a little while ago about how to choose them and why you would want to use them. This is definitely one of the reasons. If you're interested in planting tomatoes and peppers for really good luck, I did a video on that as well. And there's also one on fertilizing your onions and your garlic. So I hope this gave you some really good information about what gardening actually looks like. It's not perfect. It takes a lot of work, and sometimes nature's working against you. But if you are new here, please consider subscribing. Join me on my journey. Things will get better. I know probably by July we'll have a drought and we'll be wishing for rain. So anyway, I want to thank you for joining me. And until the next time, have a really wonderful day. Thank you and bye.